Hello and welcome to the MinnMax Show. I'm Ben Hansen, joined by Kyle Hilliard.
Whoa!
Cyril Vasquez.
Hi.
And Jeff Marchiafava.
Hey.
What are you doing here?
Just like old times.
Yeah. Now, where were we before we were so rudely interrupted? Oh, man, this is weird. This is what we're considering an episode 0, just to kind of give the lay of the land of what this is, what we see the content looking like, what the future may hold, what it isn't, what it might be, what it could be. A thank you for people tuning in, watching, or listening to this. There's a lot of groundwork to lay and a lot of room to explore, mistakes to be made. There is so much to try and iron out here. But number one question is, Jeff Marchiafava, how have you been?
I've been doing great.
Now, see, ever since the layoffs at Game Informer, Kyle Hilliard and Cyril Vasquez have been streaming, writing freelance reviews, scrambling on the treadmills of society. And you, every time I call you, you're sitting in your lawn with a drink in your hand, I believe?
Yeah, pretty much.
What are you
Just
doing?
constantly being woken up from naps by Hansen.
You know, I haven't had to scramble as much, and so I've been taking advantage of it.
So what does that mean?
It means I got severance, Hansen.
Look, what's your address? How much money do you make a year? What are the last 4 digits of your social?
What is it like to be disconnected from Game Informer and to be unemployed?
It's been a roller coaster of emotions.
Have you cried?
Wow, going straight to crying. Yeah, like when I was processing it and kind of found out, and it was mostly just like my wife being super cool and supportive about it. That's the kind of thing that gets to me, not like
Right.
You know, a job's a job, but it's like
Former coworkers or former coworkers.
when people band together, you know, it's same thing in movies. It's a known weakness for me. That's that's what touches me. So
That's very sweet. And Cyril and Kyle, you guys have been streaming, freelancing. Has it been fun? Has it been interesting?
Streaming's fun. I like streaming.
Oh,
yeah.
good.
I mean, I like writing about games, so I want to keep doing it.
Yeah.
But like the act of freelancing, of like sending emails and following up with people because I didn't get paid, and then following up a couple days later because I didn't get paid, that part's not fun. I don't like that part.
Sometimes you have to work for your paycheck.
Yeah, I don't understand this at all. This is bizarre. Some people might be wondering, why now? What's happening? Why are you launching a Patreon?
I think it's because a bunch of us got laid off, right?
Oh, that's right. And just to be clear,
I
I don't want to
better to do.
Yeah.
I don't want to dwell too much on the past. Like, I want to move forward by and large with this. This isn't going to be the unpack what happened in your final days at Game Informer show
Except
over and
for
over
asking
again.
Jeff if he cried.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to ask me about. I don't know what his freaky life is like now. But it was a weird timeline because when those layoffs happened, it's like, well, I don't see any other option here for myself other than trying to keep people together in the best way that I can, which involves decorating my basement and buying a bunch of equipment and just shoehorning everybody down into this creepy dark spider cellar.
Finally getting that candle you were always talking about putting in the
Hey,
office.
Expender.
But it was like, it's a fire hazard. I don't know.
But also it was tricky because those layoffs happened, and then at the same time, it was like, okay, Kyle, I don't know if you remember this, but it's like, hey, we have a Pokemon cover story trip. You got to pack up and go to Tokyo.
Oh, did you guys go and do that one?
Yeah, we ended up doing that, Kyle.
Oh, cool.
Brian Shea wrote it.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yes. Congratulations to Brian Shea for writing his first cover story.
Yeah,
It's solid, and it was a fun month of coverage in the most bizarre circumstances. But because of that, it's like, well, it's not fair to the Pokemon company for me to like drop out of this before like we've released all that content. It's not their fault what happened. I can think of some other people's faults, but it's not Pokemon company's fault. And so then it just becomes like, all right, let's finish all that off and then head out the door and start a new adventure. Kyle, what do you want to do?
Podcast.
Really? You miss podcasting?
About video games. I do miss it, yeah. I miss being able to talk about games with you guys. I like you guys.
That's sweet. Yeah.
And, we have other show ideas, too.
that was kind of my reaction too when you sent me a message not too long after. I don't even know if I was back in town yet when you sent it, but you were like, hey, I'm thinking of doing this, making my own studio, and it wasn't clear, that you were wanted to make a Patreon or anything at that
Yeah.
point, but the basic pitch was just, I want to build my own studio and bring people back in to talk about video games at various times. And I was like,
Right.
oh, that's perfect. Like, that is the kind of outlet that I would love to still have.
I was expecting you to be more in the camp of like, maybe we'll see when I get a full-time job if I have time for it. But I was amazed that I think you sent me the 100 emoji over Slack, that you seemed to be super into it, which
Sure.
was very heartwarming.
That was actually
overall.
a salary cap that you requested. I would like 100,000.
I want $1, depending on, But no, but this is my favorite part of the old job. It's
Yeah.
just being around you guys, being around my friends from GI and talking about video games and so.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should explain how this is going to work. Like, I know it seems bizarre with this setup already, but in my mind,
we speak into the microphones.
That's
and
right.
It picks it up, and
That's
then we
right.
upload it to like YouTube or whatever that you do, and then people listen to it with their iPods in.
Keep going.
that
and
sounds
then
good.
and then at some point you hate your job less.
I don't know. I didn't hate my job. I love Game
No,
Informer.
I'm talking about the listener.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, for them. Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, working out becomes manageable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Driving is fun again.
Speaking of which, I've been doing a lot of running to podcasts. I recommend it.
Yeah.
I was thinking about how much I disagreed with someone on a podcast, and it got me through an entire run.
Oh, on the Beast
Yeah.
Guys?
No, but other podcasts.
Oh, interesting. So anyways, just talking about how this works. It's like, it seems like, hey, it's going to be the Hanson, Jeffem, Suriel, Kyle show. And like, I don't want it to be that. Like, sorry.
It's too long.
We're
It's
handing
too
off the
long.
reins to my
Simon,
neighbors.
It's too long.
No, like I see MinnMax as a larger network of a place for a lot of really talented people to come in and create content and pump it through the system, right? Because like that's I think what was so fun about Game Informer, specifically with the podcast, was just like taking this older entity that's larger than me, that I felt like I was a small part of, and then just seeing like, oh, it's just a treadmill of interesting content coming through and just trying to corral that and arrange this thing that's bigger than me and funnel it down into a podcast every week with the Game Informer show. That was like the most fun thing in the world. And so that was the scary part of like, okay, well, if I build a studio in my basement, it's going to look awesome. But outside of that, it's just stressful because it's like, well, what am I doing? Am I just monologuing about games I've played? Like, I don't want to do that all the time.
I'd watch that, yeah.
And so then it's like, but if we're funneling down like the wonderful people from around the area where we're based, which is Minneapolis, Minnesota, and kind of funnel those good conversations down to this MinnMax outlet, I feel like we can have a lot of talent come through and hopefully be fair to everybody by contracting out. So we're going to be adding more shows, adding more podcasts, hopefully as it grows, to keep the variety. Because I feel like the variety was a really important thing with Game Informer overall, that it wasn't completely consistent. People were clapping in, clapping out. We get the smartest person that knows this franchise, just trying to make it as good as possible. So I wanted to keep that flavor even though we're no longer in those hollowed halls. Also, I should point out, the Game Informer show is still going on. Like, it's a tough thing. It's not a F those guys mentality. Like,
No.
we're leaving. I just left, like a lot of my friends that are still there, and they're still trying hard, and there's still a ton of talent in that building. So, don't see this as, the end of Game Informer in any way. Like, definitely still support them. They could use support now more than ever. Towards the back half of this year has not been easy. So please, keep listening to the Game Informer show, send them feedback, and keep watching their content, reading the magazine, all that fun stuff.
And they know we're doing this too and rooting us on as well,
Yeah. And still, we're going to be going back for Extra Life this year. That's big. That's going to be really fun. Planning that in my last week at Game Informer has been
Fun.
stressful but fun of just like, I think I got this. And then you start realizing like, oh, I always forget how much work Extra Life is. But we're not going to let Leo tackle that all on his own and he'll kill himself. Like, we're still there to support him any way we can and stuff. Let's see. But yeah, I feel sad about, dividing the family where it's like, there's still so many great people at Game Informer and, who knows? I'd love to collaborate a lot more in the future.
You didn't actually divide the family though, Hanson. You realize that, right?
Interesting. Okay. So then the question becomes like, what do we create? It's exciting when you get this moment of, oh, yeah, that's right. If it's just the community and us, no corporations, no middlemen. And just for the record, like, I had just an unbelievable amount of freedom at Game Informer. I really, really love that. I think a lot of people there did.
Yeah, I feel like it did. Yeah.
Especially on the video side. Like, it was rare where I'd pitch something and it would not go through, you know? But it's exciting to have this level of freedom just to be like, oh, all those like weird one-off ideas, any sort of pitches that kind of got a mixed reaction, but it's like, oh, if the community wants us to do it, we can create anything together, right? As long as we're on the same page. I think it's so exciting. So here's what we have. It goes a little something like this. There's the MinnMax show, which is the podcast. That is free for everybody. Just to be clear, that's still going to go out on podcast feeds and also YouTube. Everywhere the sun's shining, you can get the MinnMax show. We
Except
don't want
here, where it does not shine.
That's right.
In this basement.
What are you talking? No, it's a beautiful
I'm
window.
sorry.
Kyle. I don't know what
View.
you're talking about. Some tenets of the show. I definitely want to put timestamps in the podcast. I loved when people appreciated that. I love doing it, so all MinnMax shows will have timestamps.
Question.
Yes.
Are you still going to go through all the trouble of bleeping all that fucking profanity all the time?
Cool. I saw that joke coming. Okay.
Yeah, it's on, I saw you had profanity
Damn
there,
it!
so I wanted to get in there right away.
I got to type it out. I don't have paper anymore because I don't have a printer in this
And
house.
you can write down the timestamp there?
Yeah, I got it. And it's,
Yeah. They took the paper in the contract. It's just like you can't use paper anymore.
But I like censoring the podcast.
I do too,
I feel like
honestly,
it makes us stand out. People just want to know if they can listen to gaming podcasts around their kids or not. And so I always liked people that appreciated that.
Yeah, I'm into it.
So yeah, I'm hoping to keep censoring the podcast. Other video content we create, probably not going to be censored. But the podcast, the MinnMax show, absolutely.
You're not going to censor live streams?
I'm not planning on it.
Just yell bleep.
Just whenever you feel
Just
profanity coming, just
anticipate
put a
it.
little black thing over your mouth. And just be like,
Clothespin on your lips. So let's see. We want to keep this moving as well. I think there's also a temptation to be like, oh, we're on our own. Let's just sit back and relax, and I'll talk about what I had for breakfast for 45 minutes. Everybody knows that's Serial's expertise, so I won't touch that.
Wait, are you canceling that show where I talk about my breakfast for 45 minutes?
I'm just saying I want to keep this moving. I want to cover a lot of ground and hopefully have interesting conversations about games on the MinnMax show. The rest of the Patreon, there's going to be some more chill stuff. We're going to be doing live streams, which we'll get to in a bit. So expect more of that kind of relaxed, long-form thing. But MinnMax, I'm hoping to keep it moving for the main podcast. But it's a Patreon. You're supposed to get personal and bizarre with a Patreon, right? I mean,
Why
your
not?
wife has to come
That's
on and
what
make
they-
you cry. I don't know how else to do this.
Perfect.
I mean, I've got a list of inside jokes. I'm ready to just pull the trigger on it.
Oh,
any
great.
moment. Yeah.
Timing of the MinnMax show. This one's tricky, right? When do we air it? I'm leaning towards airing it every Thursday. I feel like people, especially with podcasts, they love their rituals. And people got used to listening to a show that might sound a little bit like this one every Thursday. It's like, well, let's just keep releasing it Thursday, right? Cyril, do you agree?
Now you've got two shows.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great point. Let's see. Other things, there's going to be some new segments in the MinnMax show, stuff like that. We'll be doing the version of community emails. Now it's going to be Patreon supported, right? And so if you support us for $2 a month, then we'll put out a call every week for questions, and you can post your questions in there, and we'll pull the very best of the best and then read it on the
And
show.
we'll actually care about our answers now.
Well, hang on. There is something to that because we used to get so many great emails, and it was a fire hose. And it's like, if we got a fraction of those emails, but like we actually had time to prepare a little bit more and like dive in and actually really focus on this, I think it's going to lead to interesting discussions, you know, instead of just being like, yeah, what's the greatest opening in a game? Mass Effect 2. All right, what's the next one here? You know, it's like, no, that should be a 30-minute conversation, you know? Not should be, but could be. Let's see, other things that we're going to be doing. Game club style format content. On the Game Informer show, we did game clubs, which is something that I loved going back to 1UP. They used to have game clubs, and so I always loved that on 1UP FM. And so reviving that format for Game Informer was so fun, and I love doing it so much. I want to keep it rolling with MinnMax overall. The name has never been great, game clubs. It's a concept more than it actually works, I think, as like a specific name. So I'm thinking about calling them a name that Jeff Akervik from Game Informer used to make fun of me a lot for, but Deepest Dives, because he would always give me crap because every coverage trailer I'd say, hey, you're taking a deep dive on Pokemon Sword and Shield. Like, yeah, everything's a deep dive. We got it. But what if game clubs became the deepest dive?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes you see like double stuff, and then there's like extra stuff, and then now this is the most stuff.
Very
You're
smart.
going to need scuba equipment.
Yeah.
We're going down so
Hell
far.
You're gonna have one
Yes.
podcast, and then you're out for the rest of the afternoon. You cannot get up from that.
I love it.
Enough sugar in that thing to kill you.
Nope. But this is exciting, if I may interject.
Please.
Because setting up game clubs was always really hard, it was such a time commitment for the staff, and everyone was always so busy that we really had to be picky and choosy about what kind of games we picked.
And now
I
you're
think
just sitting in your dumb yard.
that's right. I got all the time in the world.
So it has to be handheld games exclusively.
Yes,
That's right.
Yeah, but there was always that extra layer of, well, what's feasible versus what do the fans actually,
Right.
what do they want to talk about? And
Yes.
now they can help pick that,
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one, this is a very recent edition. It's like, F it. Let's do Outer Worlds as a game club. I'm sorry, a deepest dive out of the
Already
gate.
blown it.
Right? And so just to be clear again, taking a step back, deepest dives are going to be not in the MinnMax show. That's going to be a separate video. Also, if you want the audio version, that's going to be under this all holy $5 tier on Patreon. So you can still access it for free, but if you want, maybe a more convenient way, then we're going to put it in that exclusive show tier, which is the $5 tier, which again, I'll outline all that stuff later. There's a lot of numbers and stuff to go around, but hey, we want to keep this thing alive and sustainable and growing and everything, right? So Outer Worlds, I've been playing it. I've really been enjoying it. I am at a point now where it's like, oh, this would be a great place to stop for the deepest dive. So the first episode of the Outer Worlds Game Club / deepest dive, we're going to try airing on October 30th.
Spooky.
Very
or is that
spooky.
31st?
Well, it's not important.
Okay.
So the goal is right before you get to the planet Monarch, that's when you're going to stop playing.
Monarch.
And
Don't get off the ship onto Monarch is kind of the goal
so you
here.
land on Monarch, but you don't step out.
Yes.
Okay.
And if this is, if you're not familiar with the format, the way it's going to work, and especially now because it's a little bit more complicated, is we'll have a post on the Patreon for MinnMax, 2 N's, don't forget, please. We'll have a post on the Patreon and getting your feedback, getting your thoughts. Specific points of feedback are great of like, oh, Outer Worlds, I love this exchange, this character, this enemy. I love this system. Get as specific as you possibly can in your feedback, and then we read it, and we all have a deep dive on Outer Worlds. So October 30th is going to be that first episode.
Just so people aren't freaking out too much.
Please.
How far into the game is that? Like how much can people expect?
Honestly,
in terms of
I
time?
got there I was breezing too fast, and I'm going to be going back and playing some stuff again. But I got there in about 3 hours. It's somewhere between 3 and 10 hours, I'd say, for that opening chunk.
And it's worth noting that at least if you're playing on Xbox, it's part of Game Pass.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to spend, I don't know what the full price of the game is, but you can play it through the Game Pass.
That's
which
right.
is
Also
cheaper.
available on the Epic Games Store if you're playing on PC, which I'm playing on PS4, and I was expecting it to be rough. And there's some technical issues like cloud textures look bad and stuff like that, but it's not nearly as bad as I was expecting playing on just a base PS4 as well.
And if you have a PS4 or PC, if you have $60, it's free as well. So
Oh, interesting.
you just get it
Yeah.
out that
That's
price.
smart. That's smart, man. Okay, other content from MinnMax. We got what we're calling MinnMax Mondays, which is going to be weekly. It's going to be a live Q&A / viewing party.
Live.
So this is going to be every Monday. It's going to be a place just to come talk about what's happening at MinnMax. If you have questions, feedback, words of wisdom, anything like that for MinnMax Mondays, that's going to be just a nice chat. But I think hopefully what separates it from the holiest of holies, otherwise known as Cup of Jones over in Easy Allies, because I really love Easy Allies, is I think it'd be fun too, like to make it a viewing party. So we can use SyncTube or another service and all just agree during this live Q&A on some YouTube video, not something unreasonably long, please, but like something like from 10 minutes to an hour, and just watch it together and comment on it. It can be a video from our past. It can be any video on the internet. If there's some big YouTube video that you want to watch as a group, we can talk about it and all agree on it and then watch it. And I think that'd be fun. Just a little live commentary. My plan is like oh, I have like a streaming station upstairs. I can stream that on my own. If you guys are free or anybody else is free, it'll probably be a little bit fluid of who's on that type of thing. Now this leads into this next one, another live stream. This is going to be every Tuesday. Tuesday, I think, is still the big gaming release day in some ways, right? So every Tuesday, we're going to have a group stream. And with the group stream, we'll all get together realistically until we get some equipment down here, because we need a gaming PC in the wonderful Icebox basement here.
Check out the Patreon, please.
Yeah, please. But we'll be doing it probably in my living room every Tuesday. It's going to be very
Different
exotic.
location.
Yeah,
Fancy.
we're everywhere. And so that's going to be called The Great Goatee Hunt. Just for some framing for playing a game every single week, it'll be, hey, could this game be Game of the Year? It's going to be varied what we're actually playing, but just as a way to play games together once a week in a live stream. That's
Great
the goal.
Goatee Hunt.
That's right, The Great Goatee Hunt.
Okay.
You agreed to this beforehand.
Yeah, you loved it.
I was team Gotcha Goatee.
Well, look, when we got a goatee, we can scream Gotcha Goatee.
Okay. I see.
Other stuff. Something I'm excited about, and this is another one of those murky things, is I would love to try doing like news videos. Like part reaction, part just if I have any insight on a big news story, if there's a megaton that drops, just to crank something out, kind of like a little quick video essay and stuff. Jeff, I know you're interested in that format too. I haven't really done too much of that. I think it'd be really fun. So that'll be churned out for free throughout the life. I don't know. Also, spoiler casts. We love doing them. We want to do them for games, TV shows, movies. I mean, it's a good catch-all, and I'm looking forward to doing that. The work in progress name right now is the Mighty Spoiler Cast. I think I just wrote that because when I first came up with the name MinnMax, I was like, why do I like that? It's like, oh, that's right, because I really like Mighty Max as a kid. So I'm going to have to work the word mighty in there somewhere.
We had to come up with a lot of names really fast.
Oh my God. Maybe on a future episode of the MinnMax show, we could run down all the names, because that is fun, man. Let's see. Exclusive shows. We'll keep them secret for now. Right now, we're planning on making 2 exclusive shows and expanding that pool beyond that, right? And so we'll keep them secret, but that's going to be in that $5 tier a month, and you'll get access to these exclusive shows. One, I have had the idea written down for like 4 years, and I am so excited to make it. The more I think about it, the more excited I get. And Kyle, I want you as my right-hand man to make it.
Your right hand, not your left hand.
Oh, sorry. Let's see. Other stuff that I want to do, I want to do community meetups. You know, the site's called MinnMax, 2 N's. And obviously it's broad. It's going to be gaming content, hopefully for everybody interested. But like, the beauty of being in Minnesota and in Minneapolis is like, I would love to get out and interact with fans and record podcasts live, do some game trivia live, stuff like that. Just get people together. I think it's going to be really exciting. I floated the idea, and you guys did not respond at all in Slack, but I think it'd be fun to have our Game of the Year debate live.
For sure.
With the community. What would be better than that?
Let's have a debate about that.
Will that debate be with the community, though?
What's that?
Would the community
We'll
have
debate
input?
with the community whether we're going to do the Game of the
Or
Year.
would they just be like, oh, I think this game, and everyone boos. Is that? So
You just want boos?
They're basically the
yeahs?
audience, right? They're not, I guess, working on specifics about how they would interact with us.
Well, the
during
audience will vote on whether or not the audience gets
stupid?
to boo.
Oh, okay.
I do believe is how that works. I don't know if you're familiar with
It's a rabbit
Patreon,
hole.
but it's all about like engagement with the community and the audience and like listening to what they want and then seeing what we can do. So that is the lineup of content we're launching with here. Overall, it's exciting. It's also just a bizarre thing of I keep bouncing back and forth in my mind between, is this going to be a lot of work, or like, is this going to be like a good opportunity to really dive into games and create a better podcast based on focusing on games a little bit more? And so we want to just set this out of the gate and then expand from there.
Yeah.
Or if I'm dying somehow from the workload, maybe scale it back. But the goal is, the more we raise on Patreon, the more we want to expand it, the more we want to bring more folks in to help out, to make great stuff. In the future, it'd be great to do more game streams, stuff like that. Developer interviews. The MinnMax show, right now we're not planning on having weekly developer interviews or anything like that. It's like, let's just focus on community first, but I love talking to developers. It's one of my favorite things in the world. And so I would love to do that more in the future. I'd love to get developers involved, whether that's interviews over Skype, interviews in person, flying out and making documentaries. It's like, I could do that. I'm a video producer. So there's a lot of options. And so if you're a developer interested, like reach out, Hanson at MinnMax2ns.com. I'd love to work that out in the future, and maybe it's just a matter of we create an interview show down the road, but I don't want to leave that hanging because I think access to developers is incredible. Let's see, other stuff. Jeffem, you were very interested in tabletop coverage.
Yeah.
Yes, that's something we want to do in the future as well.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out what that would be, but one of the options certainly would, doing reviews of tabletop games or recommendations for people of tabletop games, but then also playing them as well, live.
There's so much room there, and it'd be really fun to dive in. It's just a matter of let's figure out the workload, figure out what that looks like before we do it, hopefully right. The other thing is, when you have to write 1,000 things about what MinnMax is and everything, one of the things I wrote down is like, oh, it's a place where we love games. Like there's still a part of me that's just like, it's stupid to use the phrase game positive, but I feel the way, like I don't want to be snarky about games. I want to make a place that is celebrating games. And I think it's nice to have an outlet in the center of the country, right? I feel like everybody has so much content coming from the coast, and I'm not pointing at anybody in particular, but every once in a while I feel like there's kind of like a snarky, a little bit jaded tone every once in a while, if I may.
How dare you?
I just feel like
I
there's
got
so
you.
much room just to be sincere and talk about these games that we love, right?
Totally, I agree.
Without
like
bashing, I love a lot of sites out there. I'm just saying sometimes a tone can drive me insane.
Yeah. We
Let's
love
see.
video games.
That's right. So
They're good.
they're good. Thank you, Kyle. I'm so glad you're on board.
That would have been awkward.
So anyways, place where we love games, friends, obviously, you guys, more people, blah, 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 blah. And getting better. That was one of like the first things that I really wanted to do is just that idea of, okay, when the layoffs happened, it's just that brutal moment of like, oh God, what really matters here? Like, what have I
totally.
done that stands out? And a lot of it's like, okay, community interaction, that meant a lot. And I think it also just puts things in, it feels a little bit nowhere near it, but a little bit like a death, right? And it just reframes things a little bit in your mind of just thinking like, okay, I could do a lot of things better in my life. I'm not the greatest person all the time. And so that was like one of the first early ideas was that like, oh, it'd be great to have a site dedicated to games, but also just soft self-improvement themes overall for some of the shows in particular. And so right now we're focusing on games. I don't want to create, 14 exercise shows or any of that nonsense, but just like a nice positive vibe overall and kind of like an overarching umbrella of self-improvement was one of the early things. I hope it comes through in
We
the
can do a
content.
Ring Fit Adventure weekly podcast.
Absolutely, man. I love Ring Fit Adventure.
I think we've probably all been feeling that vibe,
Yeah.
since that happened, kind of reevaluating things and wanting to do better.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. Also in the future, if Patreon goes well enough, I'd love to get a real studio. Renting studio space in Minnesota should not be insanely expensive. It should be doable, and I think that'd be really fun to have a place to hang out, to stream more, to get folks together and stuff. I mean, this basement is awesome, though.
yeah. It'll have to compete with this skyline, obviously.
We got Perfect Dark going back
Did
there.
we mention the candle? Oh, Perfect Dark might be a tease of something coming up in next week, Kyle. I don't want to spoil anything in particular.
Joanna Dark, come here.
Jeffem's wife, Joanna Dark.
Oh, cat's out of the bag.
Overall, I was thinking about this, like, best case scenario, 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, looking back at this episode, it's going to seem bizarre and wrong and ugly and stupid.
You guys
compared to,
remember when they did that first episode? And it
Yes.
was just like, what are they talking about? That is
they wanted
nothing
to
like
make it
this.
self-improvement. It ended up, just being all a site dedicated to the band AFI.
It's really
Like-
weird when they moved to Florida right after and they just kept the name.
They wouldn't
Yes.
shut up about that candle.
But overall, we want input from the community. That's the goal of this thing, is to communicate with everybody more, dive in deeper. I feel like a lot of companies are trying to get bigger and bigger. We want to focus in a way, get smaller and smaller, and tap into like, hey, we want to bring everybody joy in the best way we can. Tell us what content that would be, right? We'll have a lot to talk through, and hopefully we have enough avenues to figure this out together. Cyril, you brought up the great idea of what if we just introduced ourselves?
Yeah, because I figured, I mean, a lot of people are obviously coming in from the old country. And
Transylvania.
But you know, there's some people who might just be looking for a podcast and might just see this. And I thought it'd be good to have like a, hey, who are these people? Why am I listening to a bunch of dudes talking about video games for the umpteenth time?
Yes, exactly. And I think it goes a little something like this. Cyril, who are you, baby?
Well, I'm a Libra. No, I think I'm an Aquarius.
Why would you
So
lie?
far, so good.
I'm sorry. It's the first one that came to mind, even though it's not mine, even though you would think it would be mine. I'm a gamer, you know.
This is your idea, bro.
No, I mean, I was the fighting game guy at Game Informer, so I like that. I like watching a lot of the competitive stuff. But you know, I mostly gravitate towards the action oriented end of the spectrum. I do like a good story in a game, but it's for the most part. For the most part, I do like sort of games that require, you know, timing and things like that have systems and things like that interact differently.
Yes, you're very broad. Let's get it more specific. Give me your top 3 games of all time.
Number 1 is Killer 7, which kind of proves that I don't know anything.
You'll
about
fix that in post, right?
Yep. Okay. We always bleep Killer 7.
Number 2 is Dota 2, which is maybe the most systems-heavy game you can think of this side of Dwarf Fortress.
Interesting.
And number 3 is Advanced Wars Dual Strike, which is a game that I love.
Yeah.
A game you once said you think about every day.
Yeah, I feel like there are games that you guys probably think about every day.
No! I love games. Every day is a tall order, man.
I don't know. All right.
I'm glad you love it. I'm happy for you.
I'm happy for you. Is opening Gmail a little bit like a game? I guess I probably think about that every day, technically.
Yeah, if you rearrange the letters in Gmail, they spell gaming.
Wait, hold on a second.
Don't think about it.
That's really smart.
If you do gaming at gmail.com and you arrange the letters.
How much time have you spent in Mexico in your life?
Quite a bit. I used to live there.
When? How old were you when you lived there?
From 0 to 4.
Wow.
And then I lived in Anaheim for a few years. I want to say like 8. And then I lived in Nebraska until I got a job here. And then and now I'm still here.
That's awesome. And you're hopefully going to stay in Minnesota.
Yeah. And then to answer your question, I visited Mexico a few times.
Oh, sure.
Year, but
I just think it's an interesting tidbit of your life's journey. Jeff Marchiafava, sum yourself up.
I'm Jeff Marchiafava. I like games.
Do you
This
think
is
they're
so
good?
hard.
It's weird.
It's just hard to where to
with the
start.
top 3 games.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
No, I like open world games mostly,
Yeah.
action games, have some strategy games, stuff like that. I'd say, well, we did do our top 10 list at some point.
Yeah.
And I think I moved up Tetris as the number 1 because I was like, you know what? Like, it's stupid that this hasn't been the top game of all time since I've played it.
And the best version of Tetris is?
Tetris Splash on Xbox Live
Tetris
Arcade.
DS for
2D
the DS.
Tetris.
I know,
No, but like
okay.
which release?
No.
That actually is a legitimate question. What is your favorite Tetris?
Yeah, come on, hot
When you think about Tetris,
The
your
one,
favorite
the
game,
one
what
that
is-
I've played the most is Tetris Worlds, honestly, on Xbox. But like, it's weird. It's
What is
weird. But
wrong
Tetris
with you?
Effect is
Get
so
out
good.
of here.
Oh, Tetris Effect is good.
You think that's the number 1 Tetris?
I don't know.
No multiplayer? You out of your goddamn mind?
Yeah, but it's
fine without multiplayer.
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
But
I
still,
don't
for the
know.
best version, you want
That
multiplayer
or
Tetris.
the Super Nintendo version. I played.
Okay.
I
All
played
right.
a ton,
Okay.
yes.
All right. We'll back off.
Otherwise, Red Dead and
one or
Last
two?
of Us.
Okay.
Red Dead 1?
It was. I don't know. I still haven't beaten Red Dead 2.
This is a site for loving games.
Get
man.
out
I
of my
love
yard.
it. I love
Get in
it
your
so much
house.
that I'll
Oh
never
my
beat
God. Oh my God. Kyle, I'll let you go fast. Or go last and fast.
Okay, favorite games: Ocarina of Time. Really love Zelda. I wrote a freaking book about Zelda.
Yeah.
That's how much I love it. I think I would put Inside second.
Love it.
I think about Inside every day, which is like a normal thing.
Going
totally normal thing for
inside.
someone.
And then probably like Mega Man X, but you know,
Oh, right.
yeah. But that's like there's a lot of nostalgia there.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I like action games. I don't play sports. I don't really like
Right.
strategy, but yeah, open worlds. I like Red Dead 2 more than Red Dead 1. I think.
And then I have a
Fun
feeling
there.
you were raised partly in South Carolina and then came to Minnesota eventually.
Yeah, born in Rhode Island, moved to South
you John
Carolina.
Edwards over here? So
Lived in Minnesota.
You had a mother.
Oh, wait. Did you know I have a daughter?
Oh, fun.
Yeah,
That's neat.
I've been
yeah,
playing-
What
yeah.
was her name? Could you show me 400 pictures?
Yeah, I'm glad to reveal the exclusive show.
Yeah.
One of them is just Claire's story
it's
time.
me talking about playing Hello Neighbor with my daughter.
Oh no, thank you,
Okay,
sir.
good.
That's
Go
how I
ahead.
feel.
Okay, for me, grew up in Minnesota, like 100 miles west of here, near the town of Wilmer. By here, I mean Minneapolis is where we're streaming from.
On an asparagus farm, right?
Oh wow, yeah, we grew asparagus and tomatoes.
You raised it.
Raised
Sentient
chickens and a lot of
asparagus.
stuff.
Come here, all
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
asparagus guy.
Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff. And then, came here and worked at a TV station, then worked at Game Informer, and then quit Game Informer, which was weird.
That's weird.
And then, built a studio in my basement. But top 3 games,
Gmail.
Gmail number 1. If you remove nostalgia is always my criteria, then it's
Gmail.
Shadow of the Colossus number 1, Final Fantasy number 2, and Metal Gear Solid 1 number 3.
Solid 1. Okay.
See, if you include nostalgia, then 7 is more impactful than Shadow
Twin
of the Colossus.
Snakes or Metal Gear Solid?
What are you talking about? Is anybody choosing Twin Snakes? What kind of serial killer?
I
got
have
Mario
Twin Snakes
in
on
it.
my mind, okay?
Yeah, no kidding.
Psycho Mantis says Super Mario Sunshine. It's the great.
Yeah, he
it's
does.
the best
Oh,
one.
that is very fun.
And Mario and Yoshi are in the room where Otacon pees himself.
Yeah,
so it's
that-
a better game. Is what
Yeah,
I'm getting
that's
at.
right. And in general, I think every game you could grade on a spectrum, which is the closer it is to Paper Mario, conceptually or in any way, the better the game is.
I should play
Which is-
Steven Universe. Save the light.
I have played it.
Oh, really?
It's
Oh, okay.
it's pretty good because it's like Paper Mario. Yeah.
So we're with those Super Mario Brothers RPGs that the developer had
Alpha
to file
Dream?
for- Yeah.
I'm actually not crazy about him, which is sacrilegious.
I
Like
don't
I
know about
love
the
Bowser's
scale.
Inside Story and stuff, but man, I played through Dream Team. Feels like not that long ago, and it's just I don't like the pacing and them. Just it feels like the entire game is a tutorial, and there's a tight balance between that versus variety. And I feel like that game, it just all those games towards the end just felt like a slog. Even Paper Jam, for Christ's sake, that should be exactly it. And the writing is solid, but then just the actual gameplay is just bull. I feel the first 2 Paper Mario games are
And
obviously-
even like the later Paper Mario games you're not into.
Exactly. Color Splash, it's so close.
What about Sticker Star?
Again, farther away, but kind of close. So the first real episode of the MinnMax show will air next Thursday. It'll have a new intro song, which I'm very excited about. That's one of those things of like, could this work? And then, hey, it worked. And so we'll debut that.
You'll know when you hear it. Like, why are they talking so much about their theme music? You just go into Fruity Loops and you put in whatever. I don't know.
Exactly. In general, so the feedback that's going to come through the post on Patreon. If you're supporting the Patreon at the $2 tier, which is the minimum tier, then we'll send out a call for questions, comments, words of wisdom, and stuff like that.
So
and
even in
still
this
boil it
first
down.
episode, not this one, but the next one,
Yeah.
that'll have user submitted questions.
Yes.
Or like Patreon submitted questions.
Correct. Also, if you back the Patreon, you get access to the Discord. So a lot of people would always write into the Game Informer show saying like, "Oh, I want to play with the community. Where do I find people to play with?" And I feel like that will be hopefully a great place for what I hope is a great community. I have faith it'll be fun, and so it'll be fun to instead of like. The part of me was just thinking about like this Patreon overall and how it's going to feel, and it's like it's kind of going to feel like an Extra Life marathon, which we do every year and did every year at Game Informer. We're going to do that again this year, but just stretched out throughout the entire year. And instead of raising money for charity, it's just going to be the effort is trying to build this positive, uplifting community, And I think Extra Life hopefully has been good training for what it's going to be like to try and run this thing. And in general, like I had this weird moment too where after weeks of setting everything up and just 1,000 little jobs and details and just realizing like this really isn't that hard. And it's like hey,
Are
we're
you a little
using-
scared about how easy it is? Like, am I missing something? Of
You
like,
just
there-
totally jinxed us.
Well, no,
It's not
I'm gonna
recording right now.
blow a lot. Yeah, I'm gonna blow a lot technically, and on Patreon in particular because I haven't messed around with that too much. But in terms of just like, it's fun to build something new. It's fun to make a studio in my basement. We're using OBS. It's free software, for like a lot of this operationally. Yeah, the mics cost some money, the camera costs some money, things cost money, but there's shortcuts around all of this stuff, and like creating something new is just so fun. And just that weird thing of I had to like ask my neighbors upstairs, like, hey, is it okay if I make this? And like, yeah, and they've been so supportive and so nice. And it's like, I love the idea that I could have not done anything. I could have just gotten off and tried to get a different job or something. But the idea that like, oh no, you just go out of your comfort zone a little bit and build something, and it just snowballs. Like, it's so satisfying to create something new. So thank you for watching or listening to this episode. You're welcome to just go off and create your own content. I recommend it,
There you go.
everybody.
Yeah, I think Suriel and I are still looking for jobs.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's right. That's right.
But we're very excited to be here.
Oh, that's so sweet. And again, thank you so much for watching or listening and supporting, which is something we can now say. Patreon.com/MinnMax, 2 N's. And as everybody knows, the 2 N's stand for...
Naughty by nature.
Naughty by nature, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. In general, be good. Have fun. Let's go.
MinnMax.
Perfect.
Okay, great.
Cool.